we have, got to get in here and get busy. Welcome to the show. And Georgia, how you doing?
I am absolutely wonderful. And thank you for allowing us this opportunity. Again, I'm Georgia Allen. This is GA for Justice, and we come to you live every Thursday at 12 noon. And as always, we want to thank Henderson Vaughn, aka the Dream Maker, aka Captain 85, for allowing us an opportunity to be on the airwaves to bring to our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, and a conversation for transformation. And so I try to live what I speak. And I say I bring you a conversation for correction. And last week we were talking about the upcoming events, the Something in the Water Festival, the Country Western Festival. And I accidentally said that the Country Western Festival was for a day and the Something in the Water was for a weekend. Well, if I'm going to do corrections, I'm going to do corrections on myself as well. Country Western is also a weekend event. So with that being said, we are so very, very excited to have our special guest with us today. Our topic for today is working now for a better next. And we have Ms. Stephenie Ferebee, Culture by LE. She was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, and she's originally from Chesapeake, but moved and was raised in Norfolk, Virginia. She has a love for jazz and new jack swing, rap, hip hop, soul, R&B, and neo soul. In 2005, she began a 15-year career in the Hampton Roads school system. Her experience included transportation, education, and training. Stephenie owned and operated Ferebee 757 Inspections, LLC, a home inspection company from 2009 to 2014. As a home inspector and guest speaker, she assisted with facilitating home buyers workshops through the Virginia Department of Housing, VHDA, and the Urban League of Hampton Roads. Stephenie is a mother, an educator, a writer and author, activist, entrepreneur. She's an orator and also an artist. And she's also a motivator, to name a few of her skills. Her son and daughter are not only her inspiration, but they push her to create a legacy for their future. In 2020, Stephenie welcomed being self-employed for the second time with the company that we're going to talk a little bit about today, Culture by LE. It's a brand dedicated to highlighting the victorious contributions of Native African ancestry in the 757 area and beyond. Black heritage and culture is essential for family upbringing. Connecting with the true body of history is significant for self-awareness, and I like to also say self-love. So with that being said, we have one of our very special guests, our queen, Stephenie Ferebee. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Hello, what's up?
Hey, we're Captain 85, Dream Maker today, and Georgia, GA for Justice Allen. What's up with you?
Man, yes. I'm excited.
Yes.
Always excited to be here and to open the audience minds to a new way of thinking, because somehow we kind of lost our way. We got into a sprinkle of pepper in a sea of salt, and so therefore and you can use
just a sprinkle of the pepper when we make up everything.
And we make up everything. And
yes. No, that's delusion.
Yeah.
That delusion is so diluted, and that is not right. But I'm gonna let you finish. Go ahead on.
Yes. And so therefore, we got to make sure that we bring ourselves forward and stop hiding behind the snowflakes. So with that being said, come on and bring it strong.
I like how you said that. Stop hiding behind the snowflakes. That's what's up. We got to. True.
All right.
They scared.
Scared for what?
I said they scared.
Yeah, what they scared Yeah, scared for what? Scared of what?
Of the truth.
Exactly.
Of the
Mm-hmm.
truth.
So, with our
Yes.
topic, working now for a better next, talk to the audience about some of the things that you're doing to bring about a better next society, children, community, and more.
Yes. Thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is a wonderful platform and it's representative of the best of the 757. So, with that being said, this is the month of March, and I'm taking a break for a week. I love what I do, but it's necessary to recharge and to revisit the question, some of the things that I've done, some of the things that I'm doing. February has been quite a busy month. Um, let's start back with January. For the month of January, Culture by LE released its pop-up museum, which was a success. The purpose of the pop-up museum is to introduce another way of implementing knowledge of the ancestors who built the United States of America, and also bringing awareness to the importance of Virginia natives, our ancestors, such as James Lafayette, who I've spoken about before several times, Ellen Bond, Mary Bowser, Dr. Carter G. Well, yes, that's James Lafayette right there. And let me just say this once again. Had it not been for his contribution through communication during the Revolutionary War, the United States wouldn't be the free and independent nation that it is today. It was his word that was delivered to the Continental Army. Because let me just back up a little bit and retract. James Lafayette served as a dual agent during the Revolutionary War. His loyalty was true to the Americans, which served as the Continental Army during that time. He was able to have the British soldiers believe that he was a runaway slave. During that time, there were manumission laws, and the fight for freedom for our ancestors, our soldiers, our Black ancestors who were enslaved and served as soldiers in the Revolutionary War. Their freedom was on the line. And so the Americans told them, okay, if you fight for us and we win this war, you'll be granted your freedom. Well, the British troops told our ancestors the same thing. So there was a great divide there. And so that was, as I'd like to say, a portion of the beginning of the, Black on Black crime that's talked about in the United States of America. Everything in this country, Val, goes back to slavery. And when you look at Black on Black crime, it's because the ancestors were forced to be in a jurisdiction where they were pinned against each other. And we're still living in that jurisdiction today as Black people. And we can dive into that a little deeper but later on. But back to the gist of what I'm talking about. Yes, it was James Lafayette's word that was delivered to the Continental Army that allowed the British soldiers to be stopped and blocked right here on this soil, no further than Hampton, Virginia. Ellen Bond, Mary Bowser, her picture was up there briefly. Yes, that's Ellen Bond, Mary Bowser, in honor of Women's History Month. She did a James Lafayette in the former Confederate capital, which was Richmond, Virginia. During the time of the Civil War, she went up in that Confederate White House and she used her photographic memory. She was a highly intelligent woman, but she had to play herself short and present herself as an illiterate enslaved person. But she gathered the information of the conversations that were being had around those tables when those white people, when those Confederates were talking about how to keep our ancestors enslaved. And so she gathered the information in various ways, verbally, word of mouth. In some cases, she disguised it in her clothing. And she relayed that information to the Union soldiers. And it was her contribution that helped bring the Civil War to an end. Also, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. Yes, there he is right there. He's one of our Virginia natives, and he's the reason why we celebrate Black History Month. It's essential. Black History Month began as Black History Week in 1926 as a contribution to Frederick Douglass, who likes to celebrate his birthday on the day of Valentine's Day as a symbolism and recognition of love. Of course, we don't know exactly when his birthday is or was, because during the time of slavery, it wasn't a requirement for the birth records of our ancestors to be kept. So a lot of us, even up until the 1930s, if you ask your great grandparents or great uncle or great family member, the birth certificate may have a different date on it other than their date of birth. But anyway, yes, that's Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And we celebrate Black History Month now because of his indoctrination of intertwining Black history into Black culture in the early 1900s. And he's done a mighty great work. And those are some of our other Black ancestors and soldiers who fought for our rights, our freedom fighters. Yes. And so Culture by LE is pretty much what we proudly honor Virginia's Black ancestral legacy and heritage and Black history around the world. I mentioned something about the pop-up museum. I also had a fundraising and networking event called A Seat at the Table, where a few wonderful people came together on the occasion of connecting and building away from the table. And that's what we do. That's what we have to do. The purpose of A Seat at the Table is to support our businesses and keep the dollar circulating within our communities. We support a Black-owned restaurant. Black business owners get together, and a portion of the proceeds from the tickets raised for the event will be contributed to a Black nonprofit organization. And so that was a success. There are other things that will be happening. And, I'm just excited to be taking a break for a moment, for a week. I'm on a break for a week. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear about all the work that you've been doing. And I wished I could have attended some of those things, but I do plan to attend some going forward. The pop-up museum, tell us about some of the things that were in that pop-up museum.
Yes, well, it was pretty much a contribution of, our Virginia natives. It was a timeline of history from 1619 all the way up and through 1975. And so the pop-up museum, I had each exhibit broken off into different sections, from politics, religion, inventors, educators, fine artists, athletes, and so many other topics. And so pretty much it was the beginning the beginning was an introduction of Culture by LE, because a lot of times people may see the name and like, what is that? What does it stand for? What does it mean? And so I took a few moments at the beginning of the museum program to introduce Culture by LE. And then it was a free range of an open exhibit where, I was able to speak with each person that was there, referencing each portion of the exhibit with the people that were featured, delve into a little bit, but not too much, because the thing of it is, you want people to be able to explore and gather information and learn some things on their own. And so that's pretty much what it was. And so there was a brief tour of each exhibit. And then, I left it open for conversation, for questions, and that's the gist of it. To begin the conversation in your home about the contributions of the ancestors, because we know that, critical race theory is a hot topic. And in Florida, the process of removing Black history from the public school system has already begun. And that's a task and an agenda that's intending to happen all throughout the country. And you cannot talk about United States history without properly acknowledging the Black ancestors who were enslaved, the Black ancestors who were free, the Black ancestors and their contributions that the world is still benefiting from today. You take something as small as the ice cream scoop. Now, one of our Virginia natives, Alfred L. Krell, he invented the ice cream scoop. How would you get ice cream up out of that box without the scoop?
All right. You tell it.
And
that is so important. That is so important. And I'm going to go back to that pop-up museum. Now that you've done the first one, do you intend to use it and take it around the area? And where was it the first time around? Because me, I want to acknowledge our history, and whether it's what do we call this today? We called it working now for a better next. So I want to acknowledge what's happening right now, where it is, who did it, where it was done, etc. Yes. So kind of share with the audience, the listening audience, because people may want to come to Virginia Beach or come to Chesapeake or Norfolk or Hampton or any of the 7 cities. And when they come here, we can let them know that, hey, Culture by LE, she's everywhere. She's doing things that is beneficial to our young people, that is beneficial to our overall community, but is beneficial to gaining knowledge about who we are, making us aware of who we are, and having more self-love because of who we are. So share with the
Yes.
audience a little bit about where Pop-Up Museum was located and whether or not you plan on trying to move it around the area.
Yes. Well, the first location of the pop-up museum was at the Jordan Newby Library, located here in Norfolk off of Princess Anne Road, not far from Ballantyne and the Kroc Center. And the goal is for it to travel. The goal is for it to get up in the public schools, to get into the private schools, to get into colleges, and travel around the world.
Okay.
That's the goal and the purpose. And I am in the process of making the pop-up museum accessible once a month. Now, the first time around, the pop-up museum was free and open to the public. All of the other events will not be free. You will have to pay to get up into this because, Black culture has value. Black culture is rich. And the more we continue to subsidize our culture, the more we continue to rate the value of it. And the value of our culture is too often raped by corporations and things of that nature. When they take products, when they take a name of our ancestor or a work of contribution that has been that's already out there, and then they put another stamp of approval on it, or they dress it up in some other type of way, and they don't give any of the proceeds back to the people from which it originated. And so, yes, I'm working on, well, I actually have a location for the pop-up museum that will be available, that tickets will be available to be purchased for the month of March. And I'm getting that program together, and I'll release that when I come back from my break. I'll make that accessible for anybody who's interested in coming. That information will be presented after March the 7th.
Okay, and I like that because I don't know if I shared, but I'm back full force in the Virginia Beach NAACP, but I'm
Good.
now the first vice president. And
Okay.
so my goal is to make sure that the things that are taking place throughout our community, that we make sure that Virginia Beach, if they can do a grant for this thing over here, then they can do a grant for something like what you're doing to educate and inform our people. So I like that idea of the pop-up museum traveling, but what I like even more is the value that you're placing on it and charging a fee, because a lot
Yes.
of times people want to come to everything that we do and they don't feel like they should pay anything. But that's the same institutions that sucked out almost everything out of our community, left it bare, and then they
Mhm.
want to come back and say, well, why is this happening in that community? Why don't they pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Well, you took the boots, you took the straps, okay? Because we had done all of those things and much, much more. But
Yes.
our communities were vibrant, they were thriving. We had our teachers, we had our own taxi company, cab companies, we had our own bus companies. We had all of these things in integration. On the one hand, while it opened up doors for us, it also flushed a lot of our value down the toilet and dismissed the work that had been done by our forefathers. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I see a message from Michael. Peace
Yes.
and blessings.
Thank
And,
you.
and so we thank you for tuning in, listening to us today.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the value that you're putting into the pop-up museum. And
Hmm.
so just keep us posted. Henderson and I, utilizing the resources that we have, we want to get that out. I know I want my babies to be there and take a look at that museum. I know that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Even talking about, inventions, going back to that, a couple of other key people and inventions that we use without even thinking about it.
Mhm.
One of them is the GPS, which was invented by one of our living legends and Virginia natives, Dr. Gladys West. You
Mhm.
know, I remember traveling by map. And, I know now all you have to do in some cases is ask for a location and Surrey will come up. But had it not been for Dr. Gladys West, there would be no Surrey. So we have to definitely put that in perspective. Also, the microphone. Dr. West, not only the physical microphone that we use when we're, getting our MC on or whatnot, the microphone, the piece of the microphone, the electric microphone is in the hearing aid. It's in our telephones. It's in the form of communication that we're using right now so that we could hear each other in the dialogue that we're having. And so those types of things need to be taken into consideration. It's not just something that's used. It's not something that was just designed in a one-time use, even if it was a one-time use. But we're talking of things that are used continuously, that have been designed, that have been masterminded from the intellectual property of our people, and now it's a tangible asset. You can actually touch it. That's the power of Virginia.
Absolutely.
Virginia's been on the map for so long and slept on. And before I'm done, you're going to know what it means when you hear somebody say they from Virginia. That's what I do through Culture by LE. Not only acknowledging the prominence and properly acknowledging the Black ancestors who came before us, but Virginia, the contributions and the contributors from Virginia and the impact that they made on the world.
Absolutely. I tell you, I'm loving this. I am loving this. I am loving this. Look, we're going to have to make this show go viral because I tell you, yeah, I'm going to let Henderson read this message that just popped up.
Well, let me get in here. See, can I do that? Because I ain't got my right glasses. Thank y'all for your service, servant leaders, as we trust, appreciate the relative efforts to bring transition.
I'll read it.
Transition. I can't see because
I see your glasses are giving you a little challenge. Anyway, it's from Michael, and he said, "Thank you, servant leaders. We truly appreciate your relentless efforts to bring transparency, truth, equality, love, and peace." And that is so important. And we thank you for tuning in. Please tell your friends. Again, this is a show that while we may do it live, guess what? You get to listen later. We are on all the major platforms from YouTube, Facebook, and many others. If you're listening, please, by all means, share this because this is information that people need to know. For those of you who are not familiar with GA for Justice, we took about a year or two before we actually decided to go ahead and launch this program. And Henderson and I talked back and forth. And I said, we don't want that same old type of programming, the same old type of messaging. We want messaging that is beneficial, that is informational, that is transformational. And what you're sharing today, Stephenie, if people's minds aren't transformed, it's not because of you, it's because of them. So we are so excited. But continue to share with us what is going on. And a lot of the things that you talked about earlier with regards to manumission laws that they have put on the books, it was intentional, it was institutional. And it did exactly what it was intended to do. All the things with regards to the initial integration method and all to hopefully help us gain access to more information. We just wanted them to provide us with the same books they had and not give us books that are 15 years old, pages torn out.
Yes.
And all of that foolishness. We said we wanted equal. That meant we wanted our schools to be as modernized as their schools were.
Right.
But they thought about it and they went in their little secret closets and they came out. Well, it's going to be better if we integrate because now we got them under our control. We can teach them what we want to teach them we can prevent them from learning stuff on their own or learning stuff that their teachers would teach them.
Yes.
They also took away many of our principals. Our educators had to change careers because of integration, because they weren't interested in our principals becoming principals over their children, even though our principals were far more qualified, because our teachers were getting a 4-year education when their teachers at the time were only getting a 2-year education. Okay, so there
And
was a lot of things they did not share with us. So go ahead, because I'm excited to have you today.
yes, and that's always the case. And it goes back to the beginning of civilization. You know, the Europeans didn't know how to bathe. They didn't know how to use the bathroom. They didn't even have, toiletries. They learned all of that from us. They learned all of that from our ancestors. And you look forward to today, a couple of years ago, what was it? Venus Williams. Venus Williams. She said her husband didn't know nothing about a washcloth until he met her.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think of it, everything that we do, everything that we are indoctrinated with is based on reverse psychology. Even with the
Absolutely.
words that we use, we have to take the words and break it down, the root, the prefix, and the suffix. And we have to know how to communicate amongst ourselves, because we know the system that we're going into. We know the conditions that will be faced with, and the conditions that a lot of our ancestors fought against when it comes to segregation. They were for integration, they were for integration. But the thing of it is, when you say integration and desegregation, those two words holds a different value of weight. When you look
Absolutely.
at integration, you can take Church Street and Granby Street and break that down. Church Street was thriving back in the day. It was the
Absolutely.
home of the Addicts Theater. It was known as the Apollo of the South. That was our Black Wall Street. There were businesses, restaurants, banks, a grocery store, and so many things there. But when Granby Street opened up, for whatever reason, we've been conditioned to believe that white is right. It's white. It's right over there. It's glitzy. It's glamorous. It's intriguing. I want my curiosity piqued. I want to go across the street. I want to go across the tracks to see what's over there. When you already had everything good over on your side of the track.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with piquing your curiosity, but don't forget where you came from. Because when you take your dollars from your home and go spend it in somebody else's home, your home end up with bare cabinets. And then next thing you know, you got to shut it down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is so very true. And we have seen it throughout this country. Many of our communities that were vibrant and flourishing, if we didn't leave the community and go and buy over in their community, they made sure they burned us out. They made sure that they sucked the dollars out, the infrastructure dollars that allowed us to have good streets and allowed us to have the things that were necessary to draw people to us. They said, okay, well, if they're going to keep buying there, then we're not going to fix the street anymore. Because if they control the government, if they control the institution, if they controlled our city council, our school boards and things of that nature, then they made the money decisions. So they took the bag away from us. And so we were left without a bag. And that created a major problem in our community. And so what you're sharing today is so very important, because I keep telling our people that we don't have to depend on others. We can begin to do the things that we need to do to bring about a change in our children, so that our children will be glad that they have things that belong to them, that they can identify as really their things that they created, they initiated, instead of always thinking that they got to go to someone else's mall or someone else's restaurant or someone else's entertainment venue. And so what you're sharing today, I hope people are listening. And again, this is GA for Justice. You can listen now, or you can just listen later on in the afternoon once it pops up on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All right, so share more. This is, look, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what to share now. Let's see. word. Okay. Any questions?
Let me look. You were talking about the lady, Miss Vaughn, who went to Richmond and used her ability of photographic memory and used many ways of capturing the information from the Confederacy to bring it back to the Union. Do you have any other things to share about Mrs. Vaughn? Because I thought that was fascinating.
Uh, Mary Bowser, aka Ellen Bond, that was the name. Well, Mary Bowser is the name that she was given at birth, and Ellen Bond is her undercover name, as I like to call it. That's the name that she used. Well, I will share this upon gathering additional information. After the Civil War, she did open up a school down in Georgia. This was in the way of the Freedmen's Bureau. And shortly after that, I'd like to say possibly a year after she opened the school, it was closed, and then she mysteriously disappeared. So, I'd like to highlight the contribution of her work, because when you're assigned to do something, you just walk into it and do it. You don't think about it. It's just one of those things, and it's not done for anything. It's just done because it's the right thing to do. It's a just cause. Now, had she not done that, there's no telling which way the war would have ended. Her contribution, along with many others, helped bring that war to an end. But we cannot neglect her contribution, because that holds a lot of weight. And, this is something that I like to touch on too, because we are aware of the Emancipation Proclamation and the effect that it had on some states beginning January 1st, 1863. And in conversation, we talk about Juneteenth. And the thing of it is, the Civil War continued after the Emancipation Proclamation, all the way up and through April of 1865. So 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, there was still a war being fought. And the Civil War was not initially about slavery. Our enslaved ancestors were thrown in as a bonus. That war was about the infrastructure of the North. The North wanted to compete with the South, because the South was booming with all that money they was making from cotton. They were booming with all the money they were getting from all of that cheap and free labor from our enslaved ancestors. And the North were building railroads. They were building factories. They were building infrastructures so that they could sustain a way of life. But they had to go into the South with those railroads. And the South was like, nah, we don't want y'all coming up in here. I want to cuss. Effing up. Can I cuss?
We try not to, because we want to send a stronger message to our next generation.
I got you.
They repeat what we do.
Up our money. And so they said no. And that's when the war began. It was a war about money between the North and the South.
The money and power.
That money and power that the South
money
had.
And power.
And right. And then even Lincoln didn't want to let the enslaved ancestors go. He wanted to keep our ancestors enslaved. And so going back to the war, the Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery in some of the states. That's why there was still slavery in other states of the South up until 1865. And then we get into Juneteenth, because the enslaved ancestors in Texas, Galveston, Texas, didn't find out about the end of the war until June 19th, 1865. Technically, it was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, but it was 2 months, almost 2.5 months after the Civil War. And that's still too long for somebody to be in bondage when they don't have to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a powerful message. And you're absolutely right. The number of things that our people have done, the contributions that we've made to our community, that we've made to this nation, and it's been dismissed for years. And as you shared earlier, you have a governor in Florida who doesn't even want Black history taught at all in any of his schools and institutions. And so they came up with this messaging, which they basically stole CRT, calling it critical race theory when it was country's real truth. They just don't want the country to know the real truth. And so when I say CRT, I mean country's real truth. You don't like it, that's on you, but that's the truth, okay? And so what we have to do is we have to change the messaging. So when we go before our school boards and city councils, we can tell them, you may call it critical race theory, we call it country's real truth, okay?
Drop them gems just like that. Yes, do it.
Because if we don't control the messaging, and this is part of what I learned way back when I would hear people in the media talking, or I hear people at events speaking. It came to me, if you can control the mic, you can control the message. And so I hear a number of people now using it in different places, but I coined that phrase years ago because I understood that microphone was controlling messaging all around our community. That microphone was controlling messages when people decide they're going to run for office. That message that came out of that microphone was the thing that people believed, even if it wasn't true. And so what I tried to share with others is that we're going to have to start controlling the mic and controlling the messaging, because if we don't, then other people's messages will get out there, lie, truth, in between. And Henderson has heard me say this before. When I was growing up, we only had two things in our household. We had a lie or the truth. I got to the integrated school, I found out that they had a lie, they had a white lie, they had a little white lie. And several years ago, when Kellyanne Conway became the speaker, the messenger, she came up with alternative facts. So I'm like, how many different ways?
You know what? I remember growing up, what was it? You couldn't say telling a story.
Right. We could only say telling a story. We couldn't say you lied. But it still meant dishonesty. We understood the difference between truth and dishonesty. I got to the integrated school and there was no such thing as dishonesty. There was just many, many versions of, I don't want to come across as not telling the truth or not being honest. So, okay, well, it was only a white lie. It was only a little white lie. Like, wait a minute.
You feel me?
In my house, you either told the truth or you flat out told a lie. There was no in between.
No in between.
There was no in between.
It's still a lie.
It's a lie. So I hope that the listening audience, again, this is GA for Justice. We come to you every Thursday at 12 noon. Please click on subscribe so that you can get the pop-up reminding you that we're on the air. And listen, and if you can't hear us now, if you're at work and you can't listen live, please listen later, because we want you to have these nuggets. We try to bring to you, to our listening audience, people of character, people of integrity, people who have value to bring to you that affect your life and hopefully affect your children's life. But the thing that we want more than anything is that you do your own research. Yeah. We're going to throw some nuggets out there to you, but please sit down with your children, sit down with your couples, y'all sit down together and start reading again. And then talk about what you're reading and question and challenge one another, because that's one of the things that I have found is that a lot of times people don't like to be challenged when people share information or when they share information. Yep. And we need to be willing to be challenged and all, because it's good for all of us when we don't just accept everything as is, and we go back and we do some of our own research and we gather more information, because what it does is it makes us more knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable.
Yes. life is filled with teaching and learning moments. And,
Absolutely.
I like to look at everything as a lesson. Even in the bad, there's something to pull from that to strengthen you. What goes up must come down. And so we have to be able to use everything that we have to our advantage.
Absolutely. What they say, cause and effect.
Mm,
With every cause, there's some type of effect that's going to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Every single solitary time, and I'm so glad to have you here today. I look at civil rights and what you just shared with us as an opportunity to engage the community, and um, as you say, I'm always looking at words and different things and what's going on. And so I had to give a speech this past weekend with regards to dismantling racism. And
right.
one of the things I came up with regards to being a civil rights activist is you have to do four things. You have to do many more than that, but I'm going to use these four. They all start with an E: educate, enlighten, encourage, and engage. So when it comes to education, I said, you're going to have to provide people with some knowledge. You can't just expect people to do something and you haven't given them a background. You haven't given them any history. You haven't told them anything. So first, let's educate. Let's provide that knowledge. And then you got to enlighten them. That means you're going to help them to garner some type of emotion. When you get
Yeah,
enlightened, man, you start feeling differently when
yeah,
you're enlightened. Okay. So
yes,
let's garner that emotion, because if they're educated and now they got that emotion to go along with it, then the next thing you need to do, you need to encourage them, because everybody is not going to get into this fight and walk in there and just start immediately. So that encouragement gives them that little bit of push to move
yes,
them forward. Okay. And then finally, you want to engage them, because guess what? That's to roll up the sleeve and get to work. So I hope y'all enjoyed that. But it's educate, give them knowledge, enlighten, garner that emotion, encourage, give them a little bit of push, because everybody's not ready out of the gate, and engage, help them to show them how to roll up their sleeves and go to work. Because if you're
mhm,
doing civil rights, if you're an activist, if you're doing what Stephenie is doing with Culture by LE, guess what? I guarantee you, part of it had to do with education.
oh
Part of
yes,
it had to do with bringing some emotion to it. Part of it had to do with pushing people, because some of them, they say, well, I'm going to do this. They don't do it. And so you got to push them. And then some of it was, I need you to go to work.
yes.
Am I right?
Yes, education is the primary focus of Culture by Elite. And, with the things that are created through Culture by Elite, they're not only they're not only things to wear, they're conversational pieces, with the clothing, with the Virginia Natives t-shirt, with the 757 t-shirt, with the Virginia Natives hat, with the Virginia Natives calendar from 2021, 22, and 23. And the 23 calendar did very well. It sold out. Well, I don't like to say sold out. It
Mhm,
was, I listed it as out of stock. I want to say mid-February, sometime
mhm.
around there. So the calendar did very well this year. And these are instruments for conversation. Conversation is important. Conversation is the key. It's how we evolve. Even with going back into politics, I'd like to mention someone else. You see her name on the number 9 bus all the time, Evelyn T. Butts. She's very
Yes.
instrumental with the 24th Amendment,
Mhm.
because when we look at our amendments, when we look at the 24th Amendment, there was a big error in that. And that kind of relates to the Emancipation Proclamation, how we're taught that it freed up all the slaves. It didn't, just like the 24th Amendment. Now, the 24th Amendment outlawed the poll tax. But
Mhm.
for some reason, there was a contingency within that amendment, because there were some states, including Virginia, where the voting citizens still had to pay that poll tax in order to vote. Something wrong with that. And she went and filed a suit against the court with Joseph Jordan, attorney Joseph Jordan, and he later became a judge down here in the city of Norfolk. And the first time they went to court, it didn't work. It wasn't a fly. It was kicked out. And so the case was then admitted to the Supreme Court, and it was combined with another case, the case of Annie E. Harper, because she also saw something wrong. But when she went to court, the case ain't had no weight. So they combined both of the cases. And when they went back to court, when Evelyn T. Butts and Judge Joseph Jordan, Attorney Joseph Jordan, went back to the Supreme Court, the judge found the case to be non-constitutional. Found, why are we still asking these people to pay poll taxes to vote when the amendment says that you don't have to pay to vote?
Right.
And so it was her determination, it was her strength, it was her zealous, it was her indomitable spirit that was like, nah, we ain't had this. We're gonna get this right. We got some straightening to do. And that's what happened. And so not only after that, after the Supreme Court threw out that messed up ruling with the poll tax, she then came back and registered, I want to say, at least 3,000 people to vote within 3 months. And when we talk about voting, now is the time to familiarize ourselves with the candidates that are going to be running for these offices, because all too often we really don't know much about the candidates until 6 weeks before the election. And that's not enough time to consume information about anybody, about an agenda that they have. And we also have to hold these politicians accountable who we elect into these seats, because they work for us. If we put in the tenacity, if we build up the muscle and we go down there and vote for them to have a seat, they need to have their ears open to our concerns. And we can't just get excited when our candidate get in the seat, like what happened with Obama. Now that's a whole nother thing. And that Obama pill is still hard to swallow. But when we got real lax when he got up in that seat for the first time, it was a joyous occasion until we found out the truth. But we have to be in position to work with these politicians, let these politicians know what we want. And if they don't do what it is that they said they were going to do, then we have to get them up out that seat. And we need to build up people who are qualified to sit in those seats that are actually going to do the work that need to be done.
Absolutely. And when it comes to any of the politicians, we also need to know how politics work. Because I think that what happened is people were like, I'm just so glad to have a Black president. And they forgot that he couldn't make all the rules, that he also needed a Congress, and he also needed a Senate. And so while he may have had that the first 2 years, you can't fix 400 years of a mess in 2 years. And so as always, they hold Black people to a totally different standard. Even people that look like you hold you to a different standard than they hold these other people to. And so a lot of the things would have gotten done had folks voted in the next election, but also they also needed to identify the better senators, the better Congress people, and not just put anybody in there, because that's what they're dealing with right now in this administration is, yes, they have the Senate, but they don't have the House right now. I see your culture by Ali showing up. They don't have the House right now. And so we have people in Congress who are spending more time on almost what clothes people are wearing than whether or not they're going to do something about Social Security, health care. And every time you ask them, they keep saying they got a better health care than the Affordable Care Act. Well, telling me you have a better health care, and I ask you, well, tell me what that looks like, but you can't explain that to me. Again, all they're doing is controlling the mic and the message. They're not trying to do anything about policy. So I just want people to understand that one person cannot do everything. If that was the case when President Biden decided that he was going to do something about the student loan debt forgiveness, it wouldn't have had to go all the way to the Supreme Court if he had that type of power. But it's now sitting up in the Supreme Court. He's trying to reduce the indebtedness that some of our young people have. In some instances, a lot of the people went to small colleges and universities, and they don't have more than about $20,000 worth of indebtedness.
Right.
And so he's saying, well, let's go ahead and wipe that out so that they can use their money that they're earning now to maybe buy a home. They can use the money that they're earning now to put away money for their children to go to college. but they're not going to be able to do that if they cannot get either legislation passed in their favor. And the other group said, no, we're not going to do that. But they don't have any problem passing $1.2 trillion in tax relief for people who are so rich they can buy up the whole entire of the 360 million people. There's 15 billionaires that could feed everybody in the whole entire country.
Yes.
15.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a problem as well. And so I agree with you 100%. We definitely need to know who's running for office, but we have a responsibility to hold them accountable, whether they're the people in our party or people in the other party. Everybody should be held to the same standards, regardless. And but you also need to know why something didn't get passed. Now, if your person tried to pass the bill and it didn't get passed, you can't be mad with them forever. Okay, because there's more than one person sitting at that table that have the pen in their hand and the button to press to say, okay, we're going to pass this or we're not going to pass it. Okay, with that being said, we are coming up to the close of the show. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to go ahead and do your final comments. Thank you so much. This has been a wealth of knowledge, and we do appreciate you coming. And then after that, I'll go ahead and do my final remarks.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you. Culture by Ali is where we proudly honor Virginia's Black ancestral legacy and heritage. On the website at culturebyali.co, you can visit the online souvenir shop where unique and eclectic gifts pertaining that pays homage to Black heritage, Black culture, Black life can be purchased from the comfort of wherever you are. We also have blogs for your reading pleasure, videos, and also programs. Check out our programs. I spoke briefly about the pop-up museum. There's also another program that's available to be purchased with the description of all that it is. It's the Virginia Natives Teaching Series, which is based off of the Virginia Natives calendar, which features 13 Black pioneers and trailblazers from Virginia and their victorious contributions to the world. You may also connect with Culture by Ali on our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. There's something else that slips my mind, but I'll just direct you back to the website, which is listed below, culturebyle.co. If you have Linktree, you can also connect with Culture by Ali on Linktree. Everything on social media is in uniform, Culture by Ali. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be up here, truly, because I just enjoy being able to talk blunt, and this is the place for it. And Captain 85, for you the dream maker today. I see you rocking your hat. Yes.
No good, don't
it? Yes. Well, we are so pleased to have you join us today. And I tell you, every time that we can get a little bit more information out to our community, every time that we can have someone up here who can share more knowledge, because the one thing that I learned a long time ago, no one person has all the knowledge. So we want to come together in unity. And that's why I push Kwanzaa so much. Those 7 principles is a foundation. It's a blueprint for our community. If we want things to get better in our community, follow the blueprint. Follow the blueprint of Umoja, unity, and bring the community together everywhere. Follow the principle of Kujichagulia, self-determination. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep being determined. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We are not in this by ourselves. So let's work together, okay? And it's all of us coming together. Ujama, which is cooperative economics, as you shared about purchasing from Black-owned businesses. We need to do that more. We need to support each other more as it pertains to buying from one another. Nia, our purpose. Don't forget what our purpose is. Kauma, creativity. We are the most creative people ever walked the face of the earth. Imani, faith. Don't ever forget about our faith. And with that being said, we are coming to a close Again, we want to thank our very, very special guest today, Stephenie O. Ferebee. She's with Culture by LE. Did an awesome job today. I know this is going to be flying off the chart. People are going to be excited. Please make sure that you share it with everybody that you know, because if we continue to share our information, we're going to start changing minds, and we're going to start transforming our community, and we're going to build that unity that we need to build within our community, because now we're talking about what we are doing instead of talking about what somebody did to us or talk about anything negative that has ever happened. We're focusing on the things that we can do to make our community that much stronger. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you the next time.
Yes.
All right, all right, all right. And well, you had 4 more minutes. I didn't know if you wanted.
Okay, I'm looking at 3. Okay.
You are coming up with 3.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, we are on every Thursday at 12 noon. This is GA for Justice. And again, I'm Georgia Allen, your host. And I always like to bring people information that is beneficial. I will always push to bring information that is helpful and not harmful, because we get enough harmful disinformation. We get enough people who try their best to divide our community. And what I try to do is something a little different. I try to bring our community together. I try not to sit around criticizing everything that is wrong and not focusing on all the things that are right. Because if the more we focus on the things that are right, the more our children would do likewise. If our children are negative, it's because that's what they hear. And so GA for Justice is to bring some real justice back into our community so that we can be a stronger community. Because guess what? As the show said today, working now for a better next. We got a whole new generation coming, and they're looking to us to make it a better next generation. So with that said, thank you so much for listening to us today, and we hope that you will join us every week at 12 noon, GA for Justice, at the best of the 757. Thank you, Henderson. It's back to you.
No doubt, no doubt. I want to thank Teresa Riddick, who was, looking in today. She said, y'all have a great and blessed day. Amen. And also Mike Resnick. Yeah, his name is Resnick. We have to learn to grow our own food, and because we can feed a living body with dead food. We cannot feed a living body with dead food. I do apologize because like I said, I still have had surgery on my eyes, and these are not real glasses. I can't see, but I try to make it out. But I want to thank everybody for watching and tuning in to the GA for Justice with Georgia Allen every Thursday from 12 until 1. And special guest today was the one and only Stephenie LA. LE Cultural LE. And don't forget to check her out on the website. That's the link below. You can go, and her email address if you want to email her. And don't forget, we'll be back next week, Thursday, and want to say goodbye on GA for Justice with the former president of the NAACP, Miss Georgia Allen. Bye-bye, y'all.